Hello. Oh, hello. Not COVID. Not COVID. Welcome. Nobody knows anything. I'm positive it is not COVID. Today got my good buddy, poet, father, Peter Smith in the house. I'm brought to you by your choice today to endure this podcast, man. We got a discussion, punk, faith, politics, not art. Listen.
We're coming from creatures!
Enjoy. One interesting thing that Fox, what is it? Fox Now or whatever it is, like the thing that you have to pay for.
Fox Nation.
Fox Nation. Yeah, they had like some meager like 400,000 subscribership, you know, until like Tucker Carlson came on board. It wasn't like Fox, like, you know, the Fox TV station and networks, which has, you know, super high ratings, right? Or at least a lot of viewers.
Right.
I guess it had super low viewers, and then Tucker came on, and it just brought all these people. Now there's like millions of subscribers, and
oh wow,
Patriot Purge, and I'm like, oh gosh, it's a little scary because it's like, yep, InfoWars has kind of been mainstreamed through Carlson,
exactly.
Right? It's nuts.
Yeah, and he's running the show over there. I mean, they couldn't get rid of him even if they wanted to.
Right.
But, yeah, it's crazy. I've been kind of following Tucker Carlson for a while, and about 10 years ago, he was sort of like a conservative version of Gore Vidal in a way. Like
okay.
He was more like,
was it the Bucks, the William F. Buckley?
Yeah, more like that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And he was kind of, I mean, I never really agreed with what he said, but he wrote this interesting piece about, he went on this tour, like with a coalition of Black politicians, and wrote an article about it for Vanity Fair, like in the early 2000s.
Oh.
And it's really good, and it's really like just disheartening to see him go from that. I mean, he was always like conservative, and I'm not conservative, but I could appreciate like his earlier stuff. It was more thoughtful and intellectual, and
yeah,
to see him just like spiral into, or maybe ascend
right
into just full-blown conspiracy theory craziness.
Right.
I mean, it's just like bizarre. It's a weird trajectory.
Right.
I mean, he definitely wouldn't be famous if he was still writing these like, you know, long form essays for Vanity Fair.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, but he definitely made a deal with the devil.
That was, oh my God, it's so funny you say that, because I was just thinking about the devil. You know, because I'm saying it. No, but because Alex Jones says that all that, you know, he's always got these, he's fighting the devil, and the devil's behind the New World Order, essentially, right? And so I thought about like Tucker just starting off as like, you know, yeah, like I just have these opinions and I have these views, and I have something to say about culture and politics and society, and I'm writing these Vanity Fair essays. Like he was just like a good little Tucker, right? And then like something happens, like there was some attention, as you say, like the deal with the devil, right? And he's like, ooh, like I'm gonna become a full-blown grifter. And I feel like it might make Jones a little upset, because he doesn't even have to sell fucking dick pills, or you know what I mean? Because he doesn't have to peddle like supplements and shit. Like he's just fucking Tucker.
Alex Jones isn't photogenic. That's his problem. That's why he's not on Fox News.
No, you're right. He's not photogenic. He's fun to look at, but he doesn't go in like the photogenic category. Just like his voice.
He'll whoop your ass though.
Oh yeah.
He'll beat the shit out of you. I would
might have a heart attack like doing it.
Have you seen that video of that guy in downtown Austin who decides to heckle Alex Jones?
No.
And while Alex Jones is like filming a spot, like he's like 5 blocks from the Capitol in downtown Austin, and this guy was like, "Fuck you, Alex Jones." And Alex Jones takes the bait and turns around and like chases the guy down. He's like, "Oh, I'll fuck you up." And the guy just like hauls ass out of there.
Wow.
He's ripped. I wouldn't mess with him.
I know he's like ripped, but like squeezed like down. Like I don't know. Like it's weird. I wouldn't mess with him either. Yeah.
He's buff George Costanza.
Yeah, that's so funny. He is. Yeah. A little more hair. Oh man. But devil is a good interjection into faith. Peter, you want to have like a talk about faith?
Sure. Yeah.
What
I'd love to.
what were you always a man of faith in any kind of way? Was it, I don't remember your family being particularly religious, right?
No.
Peter, by the way, we've been friends for a long time. For anyone
Yeah.
who might just be like watching this.
Yeah. Like at least 20 years.
Yeah. Met in
Right?
middle school.
Maybe 21 years.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
What flavor chapstick you have there?
I got Burt's Bees.
Oh yeah.
It's actually local to North Carolina.
Oh. Wow, man. Yeah.
Kind of an off-brand state, North Carolina, but we got some stuff.
Yeah.
Krispy Kreme is from here too.
Oh wow. Burt's Bees and Krispy Kreme, right?
And a baby.
Oh, that's like a
rapper.
yeah. There's some controversy recently, right? Like something happened. Like
Yeah, he went on this horrible transphobic rant at some concert.
was he like opening for Dave Chappelle or what was going on?
Well, it's fun. Have you seen Chappelle's stand-up?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're like in sync,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but that's a whole different
Yeah.
that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah. And we can dabble in it, but yeah, we can do the faith talk.
Yeah, to answer your question, no. I mean, I wasn't raised religious or even spiritual at all. Wasn't really raised anything, just secular.
Yeah.
We like kind of, I mean, we celebrated Christmas, in a very secular way. It's more just about time with family and stuff like that. And I don't feel like I was ever particularly like anti-religion in general. But it just really wasn't on my radar. And I got into it. I was sort of like to some degree, like interested in religion in kind of like a cultural sense. Like I like gospel music, for example.
Yeah.
But that was pretty much as far as it went. And I got like pretty heavy into drugs and drinking, and long story short, just really like bottomed out and ruined my life. And I got sober through AA. And after a couple years in AA, I just felt like my life wasn't like I was sober, but my life hadn't really changed. Like I kind of felt like I was still like the same person, just not using. And that was pretty discouraging.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started like exploring different traditions of like spirituality, and it's pretty into like new age stuff for a while, like Edgar Cayce. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah, wasn't he like a kind of a like he would kind of like go into trances, right?
Yeah, he was like a medium, I guess. Or
yeah.
And
he would figure out like people's relatives or spirits and stuff, right?
Yep, exactly. And
it was super.
A lot
I remember that it was like super energetically taxing for him, right? Like when he would.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, like it was too right. Like he couldn't do too much in a day, or he'd be like sick, right?
Yeah. I read that. Yeah, and he talked a lot about like past life regression and like reincarnation and stuff like that. And so I read one of his, well, he didn't really write books, but like people kind of like, I think the people he worked with or whatever kind of like culled his speeches and talks and stuff like that together, and kind of like pieced them together like that. And so I read one book called like, what was it, like something in reincarnation? I can't even remember now. Dreams and Reincarnation, maybe. And I got like really into him, and his stuff just kind of made a lot of sense to me. And I was sort of surprised to find out that he was Christian. And it sort of like kind of coincided with some other connections. Like I was in college then, and I read Paradise Lost. And John Milton is also like, he was like way before the whole like New Age movement, but he was very, you'd probably call him like mystical.
Yeah.
Like more like mystical Christianity. He was definitely outside the mainstream for his time. Okay. And I don't know, all these pieces just kind of fell together, and I decided to read the Gospels in the Bible. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Did you have a
And
particular like one that you were drawn to, or what was the first
yeah,
Bible you read, right?
yeah, the Gospel of John.
Yeah.
So and I'm not like a Bible historian or anything, so I don't know the lingo or whatever, but basically like Matthew, Mark, and Luke were all written based on like the same I'm going to butcher this, but they're basically based on like the same stories, and they're kind of structured in the same way.
Okay.
And John is very different. And it's much more, like I said before, mystical.
Yeah.
It's much more like dreamy, and it kind of felt like it was just much more relatable, because the Matthew, Mark, and Luke were good for like kind of learning about the stories and like the history of Jesus's life and his teachings and stuff. But John was more like the atmosphere and the feel of Jesus's life, and it's much more like emotional and kind of like visceral in that way. And I really you can feel like Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Well, Luke was a doctor, but they all three kind of feel like a little more pedantic, like very straightforward, whereas John feels much more poetic. And just really, it hit me. And overall, like I said before, like I wasn't like anti-religious or anything like that, or anti-Christian, but definitely kind of had a view of Christianity, just kind of based on, just kind of like, well, you remember what it was like at Earhart, like, the Christian crowd, like the evangelical crowd was like very in your face and very like condemning and judgmental and stuff like that. And sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, it's like I feel like it wasn't a sour taste, but I was just like, it was like I'm not looking to get anything from over there. I don't know. It just wasn't interested, but I wasn't like, hey, like, I'm an atheist. I don't know why I went to Alex Jones for describing atheism, but
like they certainly weren't inviting, I should say.
I mean, I knew about Catholicism because my side, my mom's side was Catholic, but they weren't really practicing. So it was just like, okay, go to church on Christmas and Easter and just be like a little bit bored before like whatever the festivities food, just like Hindu temple was just a little boring.
But
it didn't inspire like any hatred or like I mean, later on, I feel like I got mad about religion because I was like, oh no, like there's a bunch of historical stuff that men and women and people have done in the name of God, and that stuff sucks. So
I'm probably more mad at the church now than I've ever been, than I ever was before.
Well, we can get to anger too, but I'm sorry, I don't mean
to
too.
I don't want to get ahead of myself, but even though I didn't have like a personal beef with Christianity, I still kind of had like, I guess, just like a dim view of Christianity. And I thought that like when people talked about like the teachings of Jesus, I just imagined like a bunch of rules and stuff. Like, you got to do this or else you're going to hell. And it was all very like, legalistic and stuff like that. And I was just really like personally kind of shocked by how Jesus, especially in all the Gospels, but especially in the Gospel of John, just really isn't like that. I mean, he has his moments where he's like,
flips over a table,
wagging his finger. He only does that one time. You know what I mean?
It's pretty cool.
It was.
Right, because there's like money, like people that are doing something that's fucked with money. That's all I know. There's money, right? Or
basically imagine like your modern day, like Joel Osteen, mega church. People who are using the church or then
to enrich themselves.
Enrich themselves.
Like
That's
that
really
weird
just
pastor who gets confronted about his like jumbo jet or whatever, and he all
right. Yeah.
demonic and like it's like that viral meme now.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So I was just like, at that time in my life, like I was really discouraged because I had been sober for a couple years. I thought that my life, was on the right track, and I just like kept kind of acting like the same old me. And it's one thing to do that, like for me when I was using, because I could kind of be like, you know, more or less like blame the drugs. And I got sober. I'm like, well, it was never really the drugs, but it certainly didn't help anything.
Yeah.
But 2 years sober, it was just me.
Yeah.
It was just me, and um, so
I mean, that's
I
interesting
found
that
Jesus.
I would just
Sorry.
imagine, it's like when you're thinking about addiction, a lot of people struggling with it too. There's some idea of like, if I could just like remove it, like if I could just remove the struggle, like then stuff will just kind of like naturally manifest, right? And so I can understand that, because I've had that feeling a little too, some with certain things or habits or whatever, where it's like I'll just take it away and everything will happen, and then you're faced with like yourself still, right? Cold, like,
Yeah.
but you can't fall asleep or you can't party it away. You got to stick with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There was a sense of ownership that I had to take over my problems that
Yeah.
I could kind of ignore before.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and just getting into the Gospels, especially, but also other parts like Proverbs and the Book of James. But especially the Gospels, like I really just found Jesus was very like inviting, and he does have teachings, and I mean there are rules, for lack of a better word, but I mean it's more like along the lines of principles, I think.
Yeah.
It's mostly not really like behavioral stuff. And actually I found that that's what irritated him so much about the Pharisees, was that they had these like dozens or hundreds of things that they did every day in an attempt to like win God over, when um, Jesus talks about the greatest commandments being to love him and love your neighbor. And that I found that was really what was missing from my life. Like I was still so angry about so many things, and just like full of contempt and like bitterness and things like that. And it was just really made it hard for me to have relationships with people, for obvious reasons. I mean, mostly because I feel like it was hard for me to be around people. I think it was also hard for people to be around me. And so, I've kind of, I feel like I've been all over the map theologically since then. I did almost become Catholic about 5 years ago, or I thought very seriously about it
Yeah.
and decided against it.
What was how come you wanted to, but then how come you didn't?
The reason I wanted to is because I think that the Catholic Church has, so just for context, the church, we're not really involved with any church right now. But the church that we
wasn't Presbyterian or evangelical. What was it?
Evangelical.
Evangelical,
Yeah, mostly we've been just involved with like evangelical, like non-denominational churches.
Yeah.
And well, 2020 kind of changed all that. We can talk about that later, I guess. But just evangelical churches is really what we've been involved with. And I was drawn to Catholicism because I felt that they had a really deep understanding of like human suffering and just emotion in general. And that's really not something that exists in the evangelical church. The evangelical church is like very superficial. If they talk about any emotion at all, it's joy,
Okay.
which really just means happiness and don't talk about it that much. Like it's just kind of a but it's all very superficial. And I was diagnosed with depression like 15 years ago, and I mean it's just been a lifelong struggle for me. And my experience really, for the most part, talking about that in the evangelical church was that my depression was a result of not trusting God enough, which I mean, honestly, it's just like totally useless advice.
It sucks. Yeah, too.
Yeah, it's
kind of mean.
It's stupid. Yeah, it is mean, and it's just not helpful.
Yeah.
And so I saw like in the Catholic Church, like just like a real understanding of the human experience. And I appreciated how thoughtful they were. Of all the Christian groups, Catholics have the best art.
Yeah.
I mean, going, the Renaissance, obviously, but more recently, like Jack Kerouac and Andy Warhol were both Catholic.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, and there's just something, I think there's something about accepting that, that human experience, the experience of suffering that leads to art, like leads to great art. Like there's almost no good evangelical art or culture. I mean, there's almost no culture really, to at least not to contemporary evangelicalism. And then the music's all pretty boring.
Okay.
And they frown on guitar solos.
Really? There's like a specific a ruling somewhere. Like
I remember we were in this church when we first moved to Asheville, and the bands that played there were pretty good, but they had this guy who was like from out of town or something who was playing with the band, and he just like ripped this sick guitar solo in the middle of the song. And I remember it being like taboo, like noticing, I was like, yeah, this is awesome. This is what's been missing. It like, it sounded like I don't know, like Pink Floyd or something. Like it was like spacey kind of, but it was sick.
But it was too indulgent, right? Or it was
exactly
masturbatory, right?
Because that made it about him, the artist, and not about God. As though God appreciates boring music.
I feel like an asshole because I know that's funny. But I feel like an asshole because I feel like I've had that judgment before too. It's like, oh, this man, like I've had that same evangelical judgment of a guitar solo or some, maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe like Fish or I don't know. Like, and I'm just like, oh, God doesn't appreciate that. Like,
maybe God doesn't appreciate Fish. I
don't know. Yeah. I heard one song. It's this like Farmhouse. Have you ever heard that song? It's called Fish. It's just called Farmhouse. And I was like, it's a good song.
Really?
It's like one good song that I've ever remembered hearing. I just listened to it today.
I'll have to check it out. I heard one Fish song on the radio one time, and it was really good, but then I couldn't find it because they've got like 50 albums.
I know. It's like, it's oppressive.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a little bit. Yeah. But the reason, so ultimately the reason that I permanently abandoned thinking about becoming Catholic was that around that time was when Megan, my wife, got pregnant with our first kid. And I just could not see myself raising kids in the Catholic Church because of how pervasive child molestation is.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't, I know that like not all Catholic priests sexually abuse kids, but enough of them do in enough parts of the world for, it seems like, I don't know, the last couple hundred years at least, maybe forever.
Right.
It's just too pervasive. Like I just couldn't risk it.
Right.
And even if I hadn't had kids, I feel like I probably would have done that because I wouldn't have wanted to be a part of it.
Right.
Because if it weren't my kids, it'd be somebody else's kids.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a shame. I hope that I
really
like Pope Francis.
Right.
resolve that.
You keep I mean, that one wasn't impressive necessarily, but you keep saying things that I'm thinking about to ask you, because I was thinking about the Pope for the last few, like as you're finishing there. And I, because he's taken a little bit, like some baby steps, right, to kind of try to address it, right? And then I don't know exactly, but I thought I remembered reading somewhere that it was like, yeah, we're gonna start frowning upon this,
Yeah.
and also like, oh, gay people are normal, they're okay, right?
Right.
And but my question is, because of that, don't you think that he's like a demon, like he's not real?
Not a real Catholic.
No, he's the whole Catholic Church at the top, the highest levels, has been taken over by the same forces that are controlling everything, woke Disney culture.
Who says that? Alex Jones?
Oh God, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. But none of that's real. Like, I forgot. Like,
it's so funny though. Like Catholics are so funny because
some hate the Pope, right? Some of them hate him.
Well, one of their core theological values is the primacy of the Pope. This idea that God Himself chooses the Pope to be, not exactly a prophet, but whenever the Pope is speaking by official papal decree,
yeah,
that's the word of God.
Yeah.
And yet Catholics hate the Pope.
Yeah.
So many of them are just like, yeah, I don't really like the Pope. I think the Pope is bad.
Almost like he's illegitimate, almost like he stole the election.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I definitely admire certain aspects of Catholicism. I think in the end, it probably would have turned me off.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, even beyond like the really glaring issue of, child sexual abuse, there's just the kind of pervasive abuse of power, I think, in the Catholic Church. And kind of, I mean, my feeling just from reading the Gospels and thinking about the Bible as a whole, I mean, even the Old Testament, like before Christianity, when it was, just the Israelites, like, I don't think God's people were ever really supposed to have power like that. I mean, every time they do terrible things.
Right.
So the Catholic Church is a very, very obvious example of that. But you see it in other ways, like we were talking about, like the mega church pastors who own their own jets and stuff. Like,
right.
I'm pretty sure if Jesus came back, He would not be happy about that.
No. But it's like, I feel like there's there's a lot of, like, what is it, like liberation, like theology folks. There's like a lot of Latin American priests that I feel like he would be very happy about revving him, right? Like,
yeah.
Every time I think about like the bad like stuff, I always think about like, oh my God, also look at all of this like liberation sort of
true.
All these movements that have come out of like faith as well, right? Or have come with faith, right?
Yeah.
To uplift people in very real ways,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we see it in America too, like with the Black church. I mean, the difference in spiritual health between the Black church and the white church.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that there is a Black church and a white church is a direct result of slavery and Jim Crow segregation and white supremacy within the evangelical church. And, there's no place, that's more segregated than the church, really. I mean, it's, and the differences are pretty alarming when you start looking at it, I think. But, there are, in the United States, there's liberation theology too. I mean, that's been a big part of the Black Christian tradition in America.
Right.
And,
MLK.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to learn more about all that. There's this guy, James Cone, who wrote I think the book he wrote was called like Black Power and Black Theology, something like that.
Okay.
He wrote another book called The Cross and the Lynching Tree. And basically the premise of that book is that you can't understand, like Americans can't understand the crucifixion of Jesus without understanding the Black experience in America, because the Black experience in America has been so closely tied, and so shot through with lynchings. and Jesus fundamentally was lynched. And so we're talking about, a person who living in a colonized state, since the Roman Empire had colonized Israel at that time, who was murdered unjustly by the state with the help of the religious authorities. And I mean, that's basically like what happened all through, has still happened all through American history. I mean,
it's crazy when you're thinking, I'm like, so Martin Luther King was sort of a reemergence of Christ, like, because the government, people.
I think MLK is a great example of a modern day prophet, like the type of prophet who, like Isaiah in the Old Testament, like someone who spoke truth to the power elite of the day and was killed for it.
And then who's now quoted by like Ben Shapiro and different, Republicans in a very sincere way, as if their views align.
Yeah.
Or would have ever been anywhere near each other.
It enrages me. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to bring it full circle, they set up a noose next to a cross at the January 6th insurrection.
Oh man, yeah. Right. Right.
So yeah, it's part of the white evangelical ecosystem now, but they've managed to co-opt enough of people like Martin Luther King, or Frederick Douglass or Sojourner Truth, but they pick and choose.
Right.
They certainly take things out of context.
Right.
And they definitely will not talk to you about it if you bring up the fact that Martin Luther King was a democratic socialist by his own admission.
Right.
Yeah, they don't want to hear about all that.
Right. And attempting to point out that like capitalism, in a sense, is the result of all of this struggle. And race is only like the first struggle. The next is like, we need to stop these poor people from dealing with the negative effects of everyone who's running fucking society, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. I guess we're gonna nail you to a cross. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, we're gonna kill you.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be talking about that,
man. But but in terms of faith, you're like, that was your right, like it's like you're yearning, you're searching for this thing, and now you're sober, and you're like, okay, like spirituality is kind of became this what like communion with God, but also probably people, right? Because I know in terms of my dabblings with, I guess, faith or spirituality, the people has always been such a big help. It's like, and with drugs too, right? I mean, just to put it how it is, it's like you have a congregation. I mean, it can be very sad and dysfunctional, but you got a congregation, and then it's like, oh fuck, I'm sober. I remember that was like a little bit of my experience, like coming into yoga and like coming out of I don't know, just actually essentially coming out of being an info warrior. Like I was like, okay, I'm going to go talk to people again. When you said like you felt like people around you didn't like you very much and you didn't like people very much, like that was essentially it for me too.
Yeah.
And then like just being with people and having a community and like a shared practice was like, oh, like it's almost like practicing. I was doing life skills at the same time too, which is ironic, like teaching life skills in special ed, being an aide in life skills. So it's like I have no life skills. I'm getting paid to teach life skills to students who are much more heartfelt than I am, and I got to do something. So the community was a big deal, and I wondered, was that part of it too? I mean, obviously you like, I don't know, like I feel like you're searching, you're looking for something, right? And that was part of like this quest.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a shotgun.
No, it was good. Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, just to answer the question, yeah, absolutely. I mean, community was definitely a part of it.
Yeah.
I think that like it's not a coincidence that, as far as I know, like every spiritual tradition emphasizes the communal aspect of it. I know there's like monks and stuff, but that's not they don't really represent the mainstream of like Buddhism or Catholicism. I don't think. I
Right.
mean, they're special. Those are like
These guys are like the
special
addicts,
people.
the addicts of God. These guys, they're up in the cave in the Himalayas and like, no, I need to be exploring God all the time. Like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's pretty wild. I mean, I envy them in a way.
Yeah,
The
I know. I've always felt a little bit.
dedication.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I wonder what they get
like,
to at the end of their life.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for most people, I mean, really almost everybody, yeah, and definitely for me, it's definitely about community. And um, at the same time, like I have felt like it, I found it hard, to really find that community in the church, just because of some of the differences between me and a lot of white evangelical Christians. It was never, and honestly, I mean, I feel like I really tried. We were really like embedded in the church for, I don't know, 8 years. And we left our church officially earlier this year. But we were in that church, which was small. I mean, I'm talking less than, it fluctuated, but definitely never more than 20 adults.
Mm-hmm.
Usually hovered around 10 or 15. But, at times we definitely like had more connection than others. But I mean, overall, like we've just found it hard to connect, and I feel like a lot of that just has to do with the kind of a fundamental disagreement about, what who Jesus is and like what the gospel is.
Yeah.
And I, it's not an experience I would trade. I can say that, just being in the evangelical church during the Trump era and being very, very patient with people and ultimately failing to persuade anybody
Oh man.
about how awful he was, over a period of like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely like a form. That's been it has been extremely disheartening. I can't stress enough how disheartening it's been.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like it's been really formative to my faith. Like, certain things in evangelicalism that I tried to accept and always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like now I can say, I just don't think that's true. And, not feel like I didn't give it a chance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I tried to be in and ultimately am not. So yeah, I mean, we're having a tough season, post leaving the church, but and this is just to bring it full circle, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to find like a good church community, with more, definitely not in the white evangelical sphere, that's more like progressive and open-minded and hopefully a little more holistic in how they think about what Jesus actually said.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot to do with like contemporary, like 21st century Republican Party platform values.
Right.
Very different, believe it or not.
Right. Like, yeah, that's the thing about like Jesus and I guess Christianity, right? Is it's had like it's got this association in like the common knowledge, right? Or in the common culture of like, yeah, that's the Republican religion, right? Like, oh, Jesus was like the Republican guy, right? And so everyone was like this very cynical, like
loved war.
yeah. God
Loved big oil and big pharma.
Yeah, and so like there's this just like accepted cynical view, I feel like, for most people about like Christians and Christianity. And then like now, at least in American culture, I've found at least like yoga culture and new age culture and all of that gets to have a little taste of that now because anti-vax. So it's like now all these now
Yeah.
like now Krishna gets to be a little bit like Jesus. He gets to be kind of a little Republican-y. Krishna's turning red instead of blue. And it's just interesting to me. And there's this guy, Michael Brooks. We might have talked about him once or twice before. He was a commentator. He died now, but he was like a spiritual sort of slut, like leftist, progressive meditator, political commentator. And he just like before he started to die, like the last year before he started to die, up until he died in like the last year, he started talking like faith, like way more. And I was always really intrigued because he's like, yeah, like it's almost like we have to normalize like talking about like faith and like Jesus and different practices and in a progressive like fucking way, and like relate it to like politics, relate it to like capitalism, relate it to our like societal dysfunction and not knowing each other and not knowing ourselves, kind of, it's like it's always so refreshing to me, and your struggle reminds me of that, because it's like, yeah, like it's, I don't know, like you've got like these political and ideological beliefs, and then you have this faith, and it's like, how do you mesh them? It's a challenge. It's like you're sculpting something, which I think is cool, but ultimately can be both frustrating and rewarding, right?
Yeah.
And we need more
Yeah, I love
spirituality
that.
talk in terms of like cool politics stuff. Like it should be, I think we should. I'm going to read the Gospel of John, and I'll buy the subscription to Fox. We can cancel it, and then I'll share the password with you. We should do another episode about the Gospel of John and Tucker Carlson.
And Patriot Purge. Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds
yeah.
interesting.
Not that they
Yeah,
go
and
together. I'm
how
not saying
similar they really are. It's really
yeah.
like, yeah, basically the same thing. I mean,
Okay, maybe I'll just read the Gospel of John then.
too far. I'm gonna have to apologize for that one. No.
I'm sorry.
No, I think that's a great point though, and there's a lot of like sleights of hand in white evangelicalism,
Yeah.
and one of them is around politics, and it goes that you'll hear certain things like, well, Jesus wasn't a Democrat or a Republican.
Mhm.
Like, yes, because he lived and died 17 centuries before that was even a thing. Like,
Yeah. Wow.
and or it'll be like
That's like after you fucking take a huge joint, it's like that
right.
level of observation, like, right?
Yeah, very deep, very deep. Or there's another one, like, we shouldn't be focused on politics. We should just be focused on Jesus.
All right.
And it's things like that. And it's like they're truisms. They sound right.
Mm-hmm.
On a surface level, they're kind of true, but they are misleading because,
Right.
first of all, white evangelicals are one of the most politically active religious groups in the country. I can't think of another religious group that would join forces from all over the country, from Alaska to Southern California, and
Wow.
all 50 states, and converge on Washington, D.C. because
Yeah.
they didn't like the outcome of the election and
Yeah.
decided to violently overthrow the government.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a white evangelical insurrection or
Right.
attempted insurrection.
Right.
And so there's that. But then the other thing is that the idea, talking about how like, well, Jesus didn't have a political party, that implies incorrectly that Jesus never chose sides.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus did choose. I mean, morality requires us to choose sides.
Right.
And basically that kind of line of reasoning is used to defend supporting politicians who are racist and misogynistic and pro-war, hateful towards poor people, hateful towards LGBT, the LGBT community, you know, and pretty much everybody who's not like a straight white male.
Right.
Um,
It's like an implied defense of, yeah, like the dominant power that are against all of these things, right? Like,
yeah. Yeah, and they don't like it when you, you know, bring up, when you suggest, and I know this from personal experience, I should say that it was never receptive when I suggested that the government could be useful in solving certain problems. Only God can solve that problem, unless it's abortion, in which case the government has to do what I want right now.
right.
But I found out the deeper I got into arguments with my former fellow white evangelicals that the abortion line, abortion, abortion isn't the reason that white evangelicals vote Republican. It's the excuse they use to justify all the bad stuff that Republicans are doing.
Right.
The real reason, in my opinion, is racism.
Right.
And specifically that this idea that white people, white Christians should be running the country.
Right.
Or people who are subservient to the premises of white evangelicalism.
It feels good, right? It's just because it just feels good. It's like, it's not even like helping my family or like enabling my like medical bills to be cheaper, whatever it is, what you know what I mean? Like, it just like feels,
it's just
right. Like,
it's power. Yeah, it's social primacy.
Yeah.
You know, it's always been this way. And you know, there's this line that like, well, Trump supporters or, you know, Republican voters, they vote against their interests.
Right.
And that's not really true. They do vote against their economic interests, but they're voting for their social interests.
Right.
Because the Republican Party, I mean, increasingly, especially in the more Trumpy factions,
right,
you know, which is pretty much all of it anymore. It's about maintaining minority rule. I mean, it's about preserving the power of white people.
Right.
And you know, white evangelicals like have this idea that things used to be much better in this country.
Right.
And they're thinking back on a time when, like, you know, black people couldn't vote, for example.
Right.
Or, you know, use the same water fountain as white people.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely about it's about power. It's about political power. They have it. They're not afraid to use it, but they're also not willing to admit that that's what they're doing.
Right. It's the ultimate virtue signal.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the ultimate identity politic.
Right. Oh gosh, it's so perfect. Like, yeah, all the criticisms are just like what the thing is doing, right? Like,
yeah. It's all a projection.
The demon.
Yep.
What if there was like a good Alex, you know, like, oh yeah, it's like, yeah, you know, like a good Alex Jones that was pointing all this out and like and saying it was like demonic, which it feel like, I understand that, you know, someone could explain all of like these societal forces that I might agree with, right? You know, but these things feel like fucking demonic, you know, because then it's like it starts off this whole thing. These people that are virtue signaling all day complain about like some factions on the other side, like signaling their virtue because like Disney put like gay people in the background of a Star Wars scene, you know, and it's like this dominates the
decline of Western civilization.
Right. And then it's like, now you're fighting like about how Star Wars isn't that bad. And it's like, we've forgotten about like all of these other, you know, it's like all of these like little low hanging fruit battles that get set up.
Yeah.
And it's just like so frustrating because you find so many times I find myself like in some wormhole of thought or argument with someone. And I'm just like, what does this even matter? Like, you know, it's so absurd now, you know, like,
yeah,
have to fucking sign up for city council and try to go canvas or something, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't even honestly, I don't even bother anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no point. I mean, not until they come to their senses.
Yeah.
And that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. I'm glad there are people out there who are willing to, you know, to have those arguments, but
yeah,
I don't know, man. I spent like 5 years trying to talk sense into this crowd, and
Yeah.
it didn't work.
Yeah.
I don't feel guilty about walking away. I
Right.
feel liberated.
That's good. Yeah. And then, you're
No longer my problem. It's somebody else's problem now.
right. Right. And you did your due diligence, man. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel like I did. I feel
Yeah.
like I did. I gave them a chance. I really feel like I gave the pro-Trump Christian world a chance to prove itself,
Yeah.
and they decided not to.
Yeah. I like the story, and I'm curious about the continuation of the journey. We'll probably talk about more on the Tucker episode.
Yeah, sounds good.
This might be a weird transition, but I think it kind of makes
go for it.
sense,
Okay.
because when what you might, maybe I'll say if I can get you to guess what I'm describing. There, it's like there's maybe a philosophy, or it's art, it's a genre, right? That is counter to like high art, right? And a lot of people argue maybe the late 50s, 60s, this type of art, and 70s especially out of England, right? This reaction to like popular art, right, came out, and it's like a spirit, right? It's a feeling. Some people say it's dead. Sometimes people say, I don't know, but I know that in middle school I was drawn to this spirit. I feel like you were too.
You're talking about the king is gone, but he's not forgotten. This is the story of Johnny Rotten.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. Talking about punk, and I'm talking about Johnny Rotten, and it's weird because it goes together because he's who he is now, right? He's Trump.
He's a Trump supporter
Trumper,
now,
right? Yeah. So punk is not dead. It's just Republicans voting Republican.
Yeah, that's what they really want to believe that. But I saw this meme the other day that said punk or conservatism will never be punk or metal, because you can't be a rebel and a bootlicker at the same time.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm sorry, Johnny Rotten, but
Nazi punks fuck off.
That's right. That's right. But and I'm not trying to diss him, but he was never known for his hot political takes anyway.
Yeah. Right. And when you look into the history of the Sex Pistols, although I fucking love them, they're like a Backstreet Boys, right? Like I was reading a little bit like about, and like they had a designer. They had like their own like this woman was designing all those outfits and like, here, try this, Mr. Lydon. Like, it was so like.
So Sid Vicious didn't choose the swastika shirt on his own?
Oh no, there was a whole committee, right? Yeah.
That's so funny.
I mean, maybe he chose that. Who knows? But I always think of his like gay cowboy shirt. Like
Oh yeah.
The two cowboys touching dicks. Like
I printed a picture of him wearing that out and had it in my. I remember back in middle school when you could like put the pictures inside the binder. Like you had to get the one with like the clear cover so you could stick pictures in there.
Yeah. I remember one time I went up to someone in my science class at Earhart, and like I was looking, always look at the other people's binders, and it was a girl, and she had like this poem, like it was like, I don't know, it was like little handwritten thing, and it was the lyrics to about a girl, right? Nirvana song, like.
Oh really?
Yeah, but it didn't say that. And I was like, oh, like Nirvana. She's like, oh, that's a poem. Like my boyfriend like wrote me. Like I'm like,
oh no, he told her that.
What a fucking grifter. Yeah, I was like before, I guess right before the internet, I guess, or I don't know, like.
Yeah.
But that's punk, so funny. But punk, man, like I feel like too. I'm very liberal with how I use punk. Like I think that like Tim Heidecker and like is punk. I think like fucking Andy Kaufman. Anything to me that is just like sort of subversive and a little bit critical of culture in a way that I find to be, punching up, like is fucking the spirit of punk to me. It feels like not Dave Chappelle special news, but he used to be punk. There was a punk time for Dave Chappelle.
Yeah. The Dave Chappelle special was disheartening, man, because he was like. I mean, he was so punk.
Yeah.
I mean, he walked away from Chappelle's show at the height of his popularity.
Yeah.
Just because. Fuck you.
What's so? Have you ever seen him talking about that to Oprah? Like no. I watched it recently. It's fucking ironic. Like they're getting really vulnerable or real or whatever, and he's like, man, like I was telling a joke. It was like some joke about like a racist fairy that will pop up anytime someone does something racist. Like he had written a bit, and like they were recording it for like, I guess the next season of Chappelle's show. And he tells the story that like he saw like somebody laugh, like a white person laugh, and it felt like they were laughing like at him in a like, you know what I mean? Like the philosophy of laughter or whatever. Like instead of like just seeing the joke as this observation about like race and political correctness, what have you, it's like he was laughing at it in like a racist way, I guess is the blunt way to put it. And Chappelle felt that he felt that he was being laughed at, and he didn't like the vibe, and he's like, I'm out. Like I'm fucking done with it. What am I doing? What if I'm kind of like putting that energy out there? Seems like what he's saying. And it's just so ironic because now what he's doing, like, like, oh, like, okay, when it was me, and I felt like the one that was being thrown under the bus, like it was not good, and it isn't good, but it kind of feels like now he just doesn't care that he's doing that to an entire other group of people,
Definitely got an angry old man vibe.
Yeah.
From the special. Yeah. And it didn't, there were moments like before he transitioned into like this 25-minute long diatribe against trans people.
Yeah.
Like there were moments that were like kind of classic Dave, like where he makes that joke about how he's volunteering to be in charge of the women's march because feminism needs a male leader. Like it was that kind of like self-aware, like politically charged, like still subversive, but like but no, there was a sense of like he was very knowing, like he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And there was like none of that in the last part. Like it was just like this kind of like unchecked stream of hatred towards trans people. Like just because he wants to be able to like say offensive stuff and get away with it.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like just a real brand choice, like, no, I'm the guy that just like says whatever, and it's like, okay. Like,
yeah. And that really wasn't like, I mean, he's always been fearless.
Yeah.
And so I can see why he thinks he's like kind of following a trajectory, but he wasn't only like, he didn't say stuff to make people mad before. Like he talked candidly about race.
Right.
Because there were things that needed to be said and he was willing to say them.
Right.
And that's totally different than being willing to hurt a trans person by like using their identity against them.
Right.
Using their like, their existence against them.
Right.
Yeah, it was really, I mean, it was disappointing. I almost didn't even watch it. But I didn't want to judge it without having seen it. So I went ahead and watched it. And, yeah.
Did
Very
you
unpunk?
Yeah, unpunk. And I watched the other, he had like a, he does these like reaction, essentially to like the uproar. So there's that other video that he did, like talking about, kind of commenting on what's happening and saying like, oh, I'll meet. It's like, I'll meet with the, it's like a little, how he does these like little short ones that are like not a special, but it's like, it's him commenting on it. And I'm watching it and like, he's talking and like, there's just like woos, like a lot of woo. There's no one's like really laughing, but people are like, woo, like, and I'm seeing, and I'm like, it's like, it feels like a rally, like now, like this, what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh, like, I'm not saying it's Trump, but it's like, it's a similar vibe of like, I'm here to have someone up there say something that validates my beliefs. Like, I'm not here to laugh, necessarily, because some people came to a Trump rally to laugh because everyone was like, he's tough, he's such a great stand-up, But like, no, it's like you're saying with the voting principles behind evangelicals. It's like, no, you're just fucking here because you hate a certain kind of person, And I'm not saying everyone in Dave Chappelle's audience is like that. And like, I fucking love Dave Chappelle still. There's like, there's a part of me and a part of his career that I fucking love. Right?
Well, I think that was what was so hard about it. Like, I remember watching Chappelle's show for the first time.
Yeah.
And just being blown away by the brilliance of it.
Yeah.
Like how insightful and hilarious at the same time he was. and then like getting into his stand-up and stuff like that. And even like last summer, like in late summer of 2020, he did a stand-up. It was like a socially distanced thing, and
Yeah.
it was mostly about George Floyd's murder. And
Yeah.
like, did you see that?
I didn't see that, but I remember that happening, right? It was like everyone was masked and it was like outdoors. It was like
Yeah,
on his
yeah,
property. I think
exactly.
Ohio or something, or I'm not
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
he lives in like rural Ohio now for some
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, it was just so good. It was like classic Dave Chappelle, and it was heartfelt, and this most recent one was just like none of that.
Right.
So I
That's
know
why.
he's still got it in him. I hope he'll, and you know, I don't know. It's obviously complicated for him, but I really hope he'll just reconsider.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, like his views on like transgender people are just wrong and harmful. I mean, not just
Right.
wrong, like it's not just about being like intellectually wrong or whatever. Like, it harms, like it makes trans people less safe.
Right.
He has this huge platform and he's using it to attack them.
Right. And it's like a group that's like demonstrably very unsafe. Right.
Yeah,
So
extremely
adding
unsafe
gas
already.
to that fire.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of and I'm not saying that's what happened, but it's a little bit of a Tucker Carlson, right? Where it's like maybe, this definitely got a lot of fucking attention. You know what I mean? And it was,
Yeah.
I heard that it was like the highest paid like fucking comedian ever, or that he
Really?
was. There's this weird story about like, and okay, some of this might be just hearsay, and so whatever, look it up. We'll do your own research, but I heard,
I will watch some shitty YouTube videos.
yeah. I heard that like the person that got fired from Netflix, this transgender woman, like got fired for leaking like data, like how much people had watched it, and also how much I guess Chappelle had gotten paid. And it was like, that's where I had heard that it was like the highest paid. He's like the highest paid comedian on Netflix or whatever. And also that the metrics like were fucking crazy. Like so many people watched it. And she got fired because Netflix just has a policy that they don't do that. And then Dave Chappelle, like on that thing I was telling you about, the reaction video, made a joke about like, oh, trans people and people at Netflix are walking out because they don't feel safe at work because people aren't listening to their concerns about this special. He's like, meanwhile, like I'm the only one who can't show up to the office, And it's like, I get it, but like this, also this woman like did lose her job, like, and you got a check, like you fucking, I guess you just had to get the check direct deposited instead of walking in. Walking in.
Right.
Every time Dave Chappelle, I used to like to go get my check, right from Netflix and walk past all the workers and shake everyone's hand, and now,
Yeah.
oh gosh, now I'm not wanted there anymore. It's horrible for me,
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, very unpunk.
Not
Dave
punk.
Chappelle.
Yeah.
But who stayed punk always was Norm.
No, oh god, dude.
Gotta say rest in peace to Norm. I miss him. I'm honestly sad that he's gone.
Yeah.
And I say he was always punk because he never compromised.
Yeah.
And I love especially how he had this like he trended towards doing clean humor at the end of his career. Like just like straight up bad jokes.
Yeah. Your
have you
face
seen
is
the-
your face
What?
is so pretty. It looks like a flower, cauliflower. Your face.
Was that from the Bob Saget roast?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so good.
I love that roast, man.
That was so good. Yeah, I think that's kind of like what you're talking about, like about punk being like kind of a mode of operation.
Yeah.
As much as a genre.
Right.
Just kind of a lack of compromise.
Right. Because it doesn't have to know a certain political ideology or something, right? Like, because Johnny Rotten feels very unpunk, but I'm sure Norm has certain political beliefs that are different from me, but he still feels very punk in the way that he presented his art and did what he did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
oddly enough, I think he was like conservative in a way,
right.
Although he admitted to being more or less apolitical.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if he had just kind of like a general contrarian nature or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. He's so
But
devoted to like the joke and like the cynicism that he can't really take any politics seriously or religion or any, you know what I mean? There's something kind of like monk-ish about that, like like going into the
yeah.
cave of the jokes, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. He was totally dedicated. I mean, he was
Yeah.
totally in yeah, in his I don't know, kind of maybe like in like a methodical way. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What about your music and poetry, Pete? Are you doing anything?
I'm not doing any poetry. I was working on a collection of poetry, but it's just it's dead in the water right now.
Yeah.
I had a couple poems published a few years ago, but I just have no juice in that area, unfortunately. I'm hoping as I've noticed that like to be creative, I really need like very particular circumstances.
Yeah.
Namely, like things have to be calm. Like I
Yeah.
have to be able to think. And last year and a half just haven't been that calm, so it's been harder to get much work done. But I am nearing. I'm almost done with another tape.
Oh, heck.
Yeah, and I've got the cassette right
We'll put it
here.
up. Ooh.
Yeah, I
Is
got
that the new
some.
one?
It will be. It's blank right now.
Ooh, oh, heck yeah. Oh, you're
But
gonna
I'm gonna dub them myself.
yeah.
I bought a tape deck from this guy on Instagram. Really cool guy. He's actually out in, I think he's in California. At least that's where what the return address was in Stockton.
Okay.
And he hooked me up with this sick tape deck for $60 shipped. And so I'm going to dub the tapes myself.
Heck yeah.
I'm still working on. It's going to be short, but it's. I'm really liking how I'm trying not to rush it, but I'm liking how it's shaping up. It's going to be called
the first
there I am.
album. Yeah, there's the plug for everybody. You know, we'll put all the info.
Plug the other one too.
We'll put all the info in there. Heck yeah! I don't have that one. That's the first one.
This is the. I think I might be the only one of only two people who have a complete collection. My friend Chris and our friend Brian founded the label.
Oh, that's right.
They made this.
Heck
this was
yeah.
Father of the Year.
Oh, heck yeah. That's right. I remember seeing them on the gram. Yeah.
Yeah.
The label is, what's the label called again?
Oh, it's Cloudy Camper Cassettes.
Oh, it's Cloudy Camper Cassettes. That's right. That's not.
Yeah.
You're just Pete Promise. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And I just associate you guys because you guys are together. You guys are. Yeah.
Yeah. And Chris, who co-founded the label. He's also Loon Lake. And I actually just got a DM from this guy on our Instagram who said he's going to play a track off this on his radio show next week. He's up in Illinois somewhere.
Heck yeah.
And then this one's mine.
Yeah. Maybe I'll
in Riverside.
If I can get that's you in Riverside?
Yeah.
Is that your parents' house?
Yeah, this was actually the last time I was ever in Riverside.
Wow.
This is the last night I spent there. My dad took this picture.
Oh wow.
With this painting.
Who painted the painting?
You remember Lindsay?
I don't know if I know Lindsay.
Lindsay Deschen?
Yeah, was she good friends with Amanda? Was she friends with Amanda?
Yeah, they were friends. We met her because she went out with Brian in like 8th grade.
Oh, I remember Lindsay.
Yeah,
I remember Lindsay now. Yeah.
She painted that.
Cool.
And then recently we put this out. This is VHS Sports, and this was actually our best seller. This one sold out.
Oh, heck yeah.
This was this guy in Mexico. He's like a 19-year-old kid in Mexico City.
Oh.
And he just approached us on Instagram and asked if we wanted to put out his cassette. And it's really good, like dream pop, shoegazy type stuff. And it sold out like right away.
Heck yeah.
Sent a few to him. And I think he sold most of them too. And he's like doing shows in Mexico City. So
Oh, that's cool.
you got all those. And then the one I'm working on, it's under a new name. I'm not going to use Pete for this one. This one's going to be under Tropical Gardening.
Oh,
But the tape is going to be called, what was it? Wait a minute. Wait, I got it. This is why I have to take notes on everything.
Dude, I know it.
I use the Notepad app on my phone.
Me too. So much.
Because if I don't, like, I've had so many.
Just ideas that are floating around in space now.
Yeah, they're just gone.
Yep.
They're just gone. It's going to be called Goodbye, Pete. We'll Miss You.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, it's a farewell to the last album's persona.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like
and personalities and characters.
Yeah.
Alter egos.
I actually stole it from a Superman comic, if you can believe it.
Ooh. I like comics, but I never much read the Super.
Me neither, until I found out that Alan Moore wrote a few Superman comics in the 80s.
Oh.
He actually wrote like the last Superman comic before. You know how like DC rebooted in 1986?
Yeah.
He wrote the last one in like late 1985.
Oh, whoa.
And at the end, Superman flies off to the Fortress of Solitude to die. He's gonna die.
Yeah.
And as he's leaving Metropolis, everyone's out on the roof of the Daily Planet and they're waving to him and it says, "Goodbye, Superman, we'll miss you."
Yeah.
I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
I've been trying to find a title for like months and months, and I've had like 20, 30 different titles. I'm like, no, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the one that says everything I want to say.
Yes. I love that.
So yeah, I'm like one song away, I think, from putting that out. I'm gonna dub it myself and do all the art and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I really want to. So Chris dubbed these back in 2014.
Yeah.
But other than that, I paid to have these others dubbed, and I just really want to have like control over the whole creative process.
Yeah.
Feels like a disconnect when I'm doing everything except dubbing them, and it's just kind of the way it's been. It's not like a big deal or anything, but I just kind of want to be able to do the art, to like follow the creative process from beginning to end, and I think dubbing them myself will let me do that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Heck yeah. Yeah. I love creative control, man. Dune taught us. The first Dune.
If
there's anything Dune taught us, you know.
Oh, Dune.
The first, not the new Dune and not the book, but the David Lynch Dune.
That's the only one I know.
Me too.
That's the only one that matters to me.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sure the new one's good. I know everyone likes it, but
yeah, I'll get around one day, you know, before I died, hopefully.
Someday. It's not a priority.
Right.
Watching every David Lynch short, all 200 of them, is a priority for me.
Yeah, heck yeah. The animated, have you seen like those animated ones, right? With like
Dumbland?
Oh, Dumbland.
Yeah, I love those. They're so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like my language.
Do you like his did you watch Twin Peaks? Oh yeah, we already talked about all that.
Yeah.
He's got something.
What year is this?
Well, I don't know. Yeah. Oh, I was so distraught when I went through so many emotions. Like I got schizophrenic. It almost felt like, because it ended. Yeah. I was just like, it's over. Like, that can't be it. That's not it. Like, that can't be the end. Like, no, it's great. It's like, I hated it, loved it. Like, ugh. It was.
I know. I rewound it like 5 times. Like, there must be something I'm missing. What am I missing? I stumbled across this YouTube video, and it was like Twin Peaks Explained.
Oh, I think I know.
15 hours long.
Yeah, I know that video. I watched it.
Did you?
Yeah.
The 15-hour one?
I watched one that was like 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
And it's like this guy, and he's like very like, he has like a whole like production value. Looks pretty good. He's kind of looks like, and I'm sitting here, you know, he kind of sounds like David Lynch, you know, and he has it looks very like Twin Peaks, like lodgy, like it's wooden.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I'll have to watch that one.
I took a class like for my David Lynch cult school, that I was in, and it
You
was
take a
like,
class with him?
yeah, I took a class with him. I had to sit there and smoke like cigarettes. No, I did get to talk to him on Zoom and stuff like we are,
Oh yeah,
but
that's cool.
that's one of the ways they lure you. Come on, no, it's a good program. It was fun. I liked it, but I had to do a class on like that on David Lynch. Like it was like the the Art of David Lynch. And so like we spent like half the class just watching The Return and like analyzing it. And the
Wow.
teacher had like this huge, a lot of like overarching theories about what it meant and how it was this commentary on like television and pop culture and violence. And a lot of it's like compelling and interesting. I like geeking out on it, but also it just feels like it's more about just him having fun and exploring. And like there's maybe not necessarily this huge overarching point or message, but it's more about like exploration and kind of like what you're
Yeah.
talking about in terms of your spirituality. It's like, yeah, I just kind of wandered in here and now I'm trying to convince like this congregation and now I'm just floating over. I'm not, I'm a little repelled from that and I'm going to do my dance over here now. It feels like that's just what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And I just fucking love it because
Yeah,
it
I
does
did.
feel
Yeah, I
like
did too.
commentary, like because of that. Like it's like we're not allowed to have that. We're not allowed to have fucking a super high production value movie, a Marvel movie that just fucking meanders and wanders. Everything's like, no, this is how you make a movie. It's got to be succinct, plot points got to be there. Does this pay off later? Act one, act two, act three. It's frustrating.
Yeah, he's kind of the antithesis of like there's like a certain style for like the originals from streaming platforms. Like I don't know if you've noticed that, but I feel like every Netflix original is pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah.
And they're always enjoyable to watch, but then I never think about them at all afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's
You're
some
right.
exceptions,
Right.
like the OA was pretty mind blowing. I thought about that a lot.
Okay. I'm gonna
Um,
watch that one.
but oh yeah, you should. You would like it. It's very. I would say it was definitely influenced by Twin Peaks.
Okay.
It's about near death experiences and
Oh.
like kind of a pseudo cult. Anyway, I don't want to give too much away, but it's really good. But yeah, I love Lynch used to probably like when I first got into movies and started watching his movies, and I saw a couple before I was really into movies. Like I saw Eraserhead. Like
Yeah.
that was weird. Like,
Yeah.
this lady's like dancing and there's like organs falling on her and stuff.
Where'd his head go?
Not sure I understand
Yeah.
what's going on here. But now it's like I watched it again. I got the Criterion. I watched it right after Ezra was born. I'm like, this
Ooh.
makes so much sense. Like just the anxiety of parenthood.
He says, right? It's about fatherhood, right? Or yeah, about being a parent. And
Does he say it? I mean, yeah. I mean, it totally is. Like,
I believe, and I'm mistaken, he had recently become a parent. Like I think he was like his
okay,
first kid, and was going through everything.
that makes sense because it it captures that feeling, like that terror.
Yeah.
But yeah, where we live now in Western North Carolina, it's really easy to get lost.
Uh-huh.
And I know all the back roads and stuff now pretty well. When we first moved here, I think I probably got lost every day because it's not. The story that sums it up is one time I went down a road thinking that it would just like cut me back to the main road. It ended up going over a mountain and took me into another town.
Whoa.
So that's the kind, and it was one way.
Right.
I couldn't turn, there was no way to turn around.
Right.
So it's really easy to get lost here. And, it used to drive me crazy. But now, like, when it happens, I know I'm going to come out somewhere.
Right. Right.
And I enjoy getting lost here now because it's like a fun experience because in the end, it's going to make sense in some way, even if it's inconvenient and maybe even frustrating. And that's been my experience with David Lynch too. Like,
yeah,
I remember watching Mulholland Drive for the first time and like trying to understand it. And then I found this list that Lynch made of like 10 rules for understanding Mulholland Drive. And I read it and watched it again. I was like, you motherfucker. That didn't help at all. That made it worse.
He says there's some famous interview with the Eraserhead where it's like, it's my most spiritual film, right? And then like the interviewer's like, can you elaborate on that? And he's no. So fucking
I saw that
love
one.
it. Fucking love it. Like that's the point. Like he's kind of telling us, like, I don't know.
Yeah. To get lost in
Sleight
it.
of hand.
And that's what I try to do now. And like try to just think about the whole, like think about it holistically at the end. If something doesn't make sense, like it just doesn't make sense. Like there are things in life that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You know,
God, that was always my refrain with Lost, you know. It was like, oh, look, it doesn't make sense. Like these mysteries, like some of these mysteries never got explained. And I'm like, oh yeah, because how life like is just full of just answers that always unravel, and you never are left with like something that confounds you, you know, like I get it. Like why do you want Lost to be so boring? Like, you know, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I love art that indulges in that liminal space, and Lost is such a great example because it takes place in an actual liminal space. Like, right. You know, this island that maybe exists, maybe doesn't, maybe it's moving around, maybe they're in another dimension, like nobody really knows. Right. Yeah, and I love in The Return how there's like, you never really know how many dimensions there are. Right. I think there's at least 2. Right. But there could be like 5. Right. Like there's like the weird purpley place, the fireman-y place, right? That all seems like it's all housed in a place. And then there's the Black Lodge, I guess, right? Yeah. So there's at least 3 then. Right. But even within like the dimension that seems normal. Yeah. I mean, is Evil Dale Cooper and what's his name? What's his Las Vegas personality name? Oh, God, why can't Dougie or Dougie Jones, right? Dougie, yeah. Yeah, are they in the same reality or are they in 2 different realities? And right. You know, when him and Laura Dern drive their Cadillac through that portal at the end, where do they go? Yeah. What about like when they're in West Texas? Like, what is that enough? You know, and it's just right. Carrie Page, man, who the fuck is that in the chair? who's been shot through the head? Like, who is that? Yeah, yeah, and I, you know, and maybe it's just like an age thing, and like, you know, just accepting more as I get older. Like, some shit's just not going to make sense. Yeah, doesn't make sense now. It's not going to make sense when I'm 80. Probably going to make even less sense then. And it's weird because now I guess I'm trained to like love that so much. Like I just love that so much when it happened, because part of me too did want to know like Audrey, like, okay, I just want to see everyone back at like the diner, and I just want to hear like some music and they're dancing and just a little bit of weird. I just want just a little bit of weird, you know? And but then it's like, oh no, like what the fuck is this? Like, this is not anything anyone wanted. Like, this is just, and like, I don't know. I loved it then because I was like, yep, it's just subverting everything I thought I even expected. They called it like Lynch on pure heroin Lynch. I remember like that was like one of like the ways it was sold, and I couldn't wait for it. And then I got it and I was just like, I'm having a bad trip. Like, but then it turned out to be good. It turned out to be a good trip. Yeah, it seems bad. It seems bad, but it turns out good. Right. You learn something from it, even though it was unpleasant. Oh yeah. Yeah. By the way, did you know that his parents retired to Riverside? Yeah, I read that in his book. Like I recently read his autobiography. Oh, really? He talks about it in there? I gotta read it. He had to like build a house. Like he helped like build their house, I think, or work. Where did they live? I don't know exactly specifically where in Riverside, but I remember reading Riverside and being like, oh, that's funny. And then when I talked to him, his old wife, Mary Sweeney or whatever, who's an editor on like some of the films, lives in San Pedro. And that's where I'm at now. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Yeah. Whoa. Well, my buddy just sent me, because I talked to him earlier this week and he said he was going to go on a Lynch spree. Yeah. I was like, oh, and I told him about the Riverside Connection and Inland Empire. And he sent me, he's reading a book about Lynch. And apparently the name for the movie Inland Empire actually came from Laura Dern's ex-husband. You remember Ben Harper, the musician? Yeah. Ben Harper and the Innocent Criminals. Yeah. Well, apparently he's from Pomona. Oh. And they were like talking one day, and Lynch didn't have a title for that movie, and he's like, I'm from the Inland Empire. Inland Empire would be a cool name for a movie.
Yeah.
And she passed that on to him, and he was like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Just exploring, allowing stuff to hit him, and like, ooh, yeah. I love that like investigative art mode of he's just letting mysteries unfold around him and just kind of allowing himself to get lost, like you're saying. Just wandering, just having fun with the winding roads in North Carolina.
Yeah. Riverside is a weird kind of liminal place. I used to feel that, like, driving around like out near King. It's probably much more built up now, but it was like on the edge of the desert, and it just felt like, if you drove too far, I would like fall off a cliff into the abyss or something.
And there was that scary little town where all the little people lived. Did you ever hear that?
Where?
I don't know. I remember hearing like this, like, oh, like you got to go down to like this little town. It's like this haunted town of like, they called it Midget.
I don't know about.
Like,
really? I never heard about that.
And it was like this,
Missed out.
lore. I never went, but I was always like, ooh, I would, there was always like, you would just drive around with like your friends like late at night, and it was like you just wanted to get like creeped out, and so you're driving down Victoria, those parts that you're talking about in Riverside.
Oh yeah,
there's like windy hills and stuff, and it's just like, ooh, it's spooky. Yeah, I still like.
I talk about Victoria Road and or I don't remember. Is it a boulevard? I don't know, but I talk about it in one of the poems I got published.
Oh,
so it's kind of like it kind of haunts me, like in my memory of Riverside.
You know it off your. You know that poem?
No, I
imagine if you read it.
Why, you want to hear it?
Yeah, what if you read it? Yeah.
It was one of the ones I got published. Let's see. And it was actually published in a book.
Oh.
I gotta look it up.
Link to the book in the description.
It's actually a hard copy only, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the English department at Cal State Stanislaus.
Okay.
I don't even know where that is. I think it's somewhere up in like the Central Valley.
Okay.
Is this it? Nope, that's not it. It was the Pacific Review.
Oh.
Sorry, I actually published 2 poems, believe it or not.
It's good. You're prolific, man.
This one might be online somewhere. This was actually, who did this? This was Cal State San Bernardino.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So this is called Cars, and then in parentheses, Taisha and me. And it's for Taisha Miller. You remember Taisha Miller, right? She was a young Black woman who was sleeping in her car at that gas station over there at Magnolia. And it's like that 5-point intersection, like Magnolia and Harupa and Brockton, I think.
Yeah.
And she was sleeping in her car, and police knocked on her window in the middle of the night, and she got scared. I think she just reached for her purse, but she like was startled.
Yeah.
I think she probably thought that, they were going to steal her purse or something like that. So she grabbed it, and they shot her like 30 times or something. And nothing ever happened to any of it. It was one of these things where, these guys got put on administratively, like desk duty for a month and then reinstated. Nothing ever happened. But when we moved to Riverside, that had just happened. Like it happened that same summer, I think, or that same year. I don't remember what time of year, but so yeah, her, just a painfully sad story. And I mean, obviously that's a thing that's a reality that has not improved. I mean, if anything, it's gotten worse. I feel like, I don't know the numbers, but anyway, all right. So this is for Taisha Miller. At a car show in Pine Center, dust settles on the Inland Empire of old. The rat-fink crowd gathers in the sun, and rehab patients watch behind their iron gate across the street. We had to leave early. Taisha and I drove the same car. When I came to town, her face was on every telephone pole and every newspaper, always above the fold. I can't forget her expression, or the expression I always assumed she had when 12 bullets shrieked through her rear window. But I remember Riverside, the way only an exile would, with bitter expectation clawing its way through the mire of nostalgia, Victoria Avenue stretching on forever, and the orchards waving more slowly.
Ooh, love it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it feels very. I mean, I can connect with it too on like the Riverside nostalgic
Can you?
way. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to read it again. I'm gonna have to try to find it too. Find that link. I love it.
I'll see. I think they did put a PDF of that one online. I'll see if I can find it and send it to you.
Heck yeah, I'd love to, man. Yeah. Thank you for reading it on the spot there too, Pete.
Oh, thanks for having the idea.
Yeah, I know. If it were me, I would probably be. If I had a poem, I would probably be too bashful. But I appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
But you know what? Thing that came to mind too is unrelated to poetry. It was going back a little bit. It was a fatherhood question.
Okay.
Do you ever have because David Lynch is like, he's got that, it's his anxiety in terms of fatherhood or whatever coming out through art. And I know you're an artist and a poet and a musician too. But this is more of a dream question. Do you ever have, because I have like the things in my life that I'm working through or whatever, you'll have those like fucking stress dreams or just like very scary, like, but real dreams about like whatever you're going through. So you ever have like really scary like dad dreams or something? Or do you ever have like I lost, I don't know, you ever have like a bad baby dream? I don't know why that popped into my head.
No, it's a good question. I know I have.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the specifics. Most of the time, I I don't really dream about people I know.
Yeah.
And it kind of seems like the better I know someone, the less I dream about them.
Okay.
So like I hardly ever dream like about my wife.
Yeah.
But I'll dream about people that like I just kind of know, like acquaintances.
Yeah.
More often. It's almost like my psyche is like too timid to like tell me what's actually going on. And so I kind of have to like piece it together. I had a dream. I had a dream recently where so Siobhan, our youngest, our baby, she's still sleeping in the bed with us. And I had a dream that she was like that she had like fallen off and was like suffocating. And it was kind of like a night terror dream, like I woke up, but I didn't realize I was awake, but I was like clawing through like the covers and like reaching around and stuff. And I woke my wife up and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, Siobhan, she's suffocating." She's like, "No, she's not. She's right here." And that was like maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
That happened.
Dude, that's freaky.
Yeah, that wasn't that fun.
Yeah.
That's the only one I can remember. I know I've had more. For sure, I've had more. That's the first one that comes to mind. I'm not very good at remembering my dreams.
Yeah, me neither, really. But like, I know I've had the feelings, I guess, right? Like, because I've had cat ones, but I can't really recall them exactly. But I know I had like freaky cat dreams, like when they were babies, because
like about them dying or something.
Yeah, like we just got these two cats. Like I had one die, and then we just got these new ones. I had one die in March, and then we got new like June. And so I've had like cat anxiety dreams, but then also like in reality, and sometimes how you sometimes mix. You're like, wait, was that a dream or is that a memory? Like I've had the dead cat, coming around, where like,
oh really?
Yeah, and then I have I don't know if this is just a cat person thing, but you kind of like when you're around cats a lot or something, it's almost like you start to hallucinate them everywhere. So it's like when my cat died, I swear I would just like see her turning the corner for a second or see her like walking, you know what I mean? And I'd like double take.
Oh
and
no.
I'm just really used to seeing her around and like in this space, or you know what I mean?
That sounds so hard.
It was hard, but also kind of a
Man.
little there's a little sweetness to it, because in terms of
Yeah.
her whole death was very difficult but sweet, where it felt like,
Yeah.
oh man, she's
Why-
an ultimate teacher.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I've loved her. She's taught me a lot of stuff, and always been super loving. And I hate that she's dying, but it was like we did this, like I did this chant, you know, and I knew that she was gonna die, because like I just took her in for like a routine thing, and they're like, oh, you gotta kill her. I was like, what? Like, yeah, you gotta.
What?
Yeah, and like she had like a tumor in her mouth, and like she couldn't eat, wouldn't eat, and it was like cancerous. And if they were to operate it, they'd have to
God.
cut off her jaw, and like maybe she wouldn't even survive. And I was like, oh God. So you know, you have to make that choice, which fucking sucks. But so I knew it was coming, and I did this Buddhist chant over and over again, like the week that I knew before, you know. And so every time I'm with her, we're just doing it, and I just spent like extra time with her, and then like in the doctor in the vet's office or whatever, I'm just doing the chant like around the vet and the nurse, like, and I'm just seeing her go. And I don't know, it was just cool, because it was like she was this thing that was heavy, and then 1 second later she was just like, there was nothing there. It's like you did, for lack of a better word, it's like I felt like her fucking soul just go away, and it was like, it was cool because I was crying, and it was like I'm around these people, and I had to be vulnerable, and I had to do this chant, and it all felt weird. But at the end of the day, there was something very like, it was like almost like she allowed me to have that experience in a way, not like she died for me or anything, but I was able to, I feel like, be a little okay with a little more okay with death, like see it, be with it in like a loving way, I guess, it was still shitty.
Yeah.
It felt kind of holistic more. It's like I still have the fucking
Yeah.
flowers on my dashboard that
Hmm.
I brought her in the car with. They're just all old now and gross themselves, but I can't like bring myself to take it off, and it all makes me laugh a little. It's gonna happen to me and you, Peter. It's gonna happen to me. So it's sweet but macabre.
It's true. Yeah. No, yeah, it makes sense to me. Yeah. I mean, that's so special. Like, you're right. I mean, we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
But how many of us are gonna die in this like poetic way?
Or hopefully just surrounded with self-love and maybe just the love of others, right? Like,
Yeah.
it made me realize, like, okay, like I want to, or when I'm vulnerable, trying to remember too, right? Or the little deaths that I have, or my ego deaths. I said in a wellness voice. You know what I mean? Because it's a little bit like that too. I'm like, this is uncomfortable. I don't fucking like this. And it's like, oh, what if I'm just like chanting or remembering fond memories of loved ones, or just trying to remember whatever I thought love was, It's woo woo. It's a little woo woo. I'm gonna go storm the Capitol, Peter.
You're actually the QAnon shaman.
I'm the QAnon shaman, yeah. But
That's
look,
funny.
I mean, I don't know if that's all right with you. That we can make that the death of our first conversation too, Pete.
Yeah.
But I do want to show you. My fucking notes. I did it perfect. Like, well, you can't really see, but my notes say, for some reason I was like punk, faith, fatherhood, poetry, music, and without really trying, we fucking very natural.
Yeah.
We're fucking wonderful at talking to each other. We're very good. We should do it more.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if I close
Great
with
job.
a question, either or question for you? It's like you have to choose one or the other. This is how the highbrow part, it's like highbrow interviewer technique, and it says, if you had to choose between your whole life, you don't have to do one anymore. You don't have to brush your teeth ever again, or you don't have to wipe your butt. Which one?
Man, I feel like I probably would choose not to wipe my butt again.
Oh man, I would definitely choose toothbrushing, but you would choose butt, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're saying like don't have to, as in there's no negative consequences. Right?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, these questions are always funny. It's like, well, okay, let's get into the weeds here. Are we saying that like it's just culturally acceptable to have a stinky butt, or
right.
magically?
Yeah, let's define our terms.
Right. Yeah. Like I think what I'm saying is like your butt just magically gets cleaned, or your teeth magically get brushed, and you don't have to do one anymore. It's like you just like you get to, you won that You've won that prize somehow.
Yeah.
There you go. And you would choose the butt. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I know.
Why would you you hate brushing your teeth or
hate it.
something?
I hate brushing my teeth. I don't know why.
Really?
Like I like to floss kind of, but I hate
Hmm.
like brushing my. I don't know why I hate brushing my teeth.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's always like a nuisance. Like, oh, I gotta go and I gotta do this thing now. This fucking annoying thing. Butt wiping is almost part of the fun for me. I don't know of pooping because it's like, oh, that's the end of it. Like now, let me just look. Oh, you get to look at it. Oh, what? It's like a little Rorschach on every little piece of toilet paper. You count the rolls until you wipe white. You know, like, oh, this time.
Yeah, probably it would be psychologically hard to transition to never wiping again.
Yeah, yeah.
I might have to just go with no more teeth brushing because that'd be a more like I'd feel less weird about that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It would be hard to accept that new reality.
Okay, good. We're on the same side then. That's all I
Yeah,
want.
but for different reasons. I
know
don't
you're right.
dislike brushing my teeth. I actually enjoy it.
You like it, yeah.
I brush my teeth 3
Song or
times a
what do you-
day.
3 times?
Yeah.
Good on you, man. That's great. Do you sing a
Yeah.
song or do you, what's your no?
Nah, I just do it till I'm
Floss?
satisfied. No, not
Not a
really.
flosser, huh?
I off and on.
Yeah.
I used to be really good about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, not so much. Yeah, it's more like I just dislike having like the taste of food in my mouth for very long.
Ah, I
It
see.
just bothers me
Yeah. That's
after a while. After not too long.
yeah.
Maybe like 20 minutes after I'm done eating.
Okay. Yeah. You don't want that to, yeah. That's interesting. Because sometimes I'll like someone will try to give me something after a meal, like have some of this, have this sweet, or have a piece of gum. It's like, no, like I'm still savoring it's like that sounds gross now when I verbalize it. It was like I'm savoring like the fucking taste, It's like I enjoy my mouth still being greasy. That's gross. And I enjoy my butthole being
I'm seeing a trend.
yeah.
All coming together.
Yeah. Well, Pete, do you want a plug any other particular pluggable before you go? My vast audience, they'll
Yeah.
buy a tape.
I'm basically famous now.
Yeah, exactly. Be careful. You're going to be recognized now, even in North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I did everything perfectly on this podcast because otherwise I might get canceled and that would be bad.
I know. We made sure of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All the cancelable stuff has been edited out.
Right.
Yeah,
thank you. Because I don't want to have to face any consequences for my behavior.
I still
it's a really important part of my life.
Are you a Star Trek fan?
Mm-mm.
Well,
I never got into Star Trek, but you can feel free to pitch me on it.
I mean, one day I'll pitch you, maybe after the Tucker Carlson,
Okay.
But I was there's a Captain Benjamin Sisko. Well, he's a commander technically. I'm watching like Deep Space Nine now, and he's played by Avery Brooks. He's the black captain, like is how people sort of refer.
Okay, I know who you're talking about.
So I was him for Halloween, and I sometimes I do like tester jokes, and this is maybe bad, right? But I'll be like with people, like my friends or someone, and I'll be like, they're like, oh, who are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm Avery Brooks. Like, I'll be like, I got to go in real quick and put on I got the makeup. I just got to go put it on. Like I tell people essentially like that I'm about to go put on like the
blackface
to see how they like respond, And that's probably not in good taste. Certainly not in good taste. Like maybe I'll edit this out for sure. but it's like because I'm never gonna fucking do that ever. Like I want to just play Avery Brooks and dress up, and it doesn't make me feel bad that I can't do that. I'm not like Justin Trudeau or something, But but it's like
did he lament not being able to wear blackface or something?
No, I don't know if he ever lamented it, but he wore blackface. At some point in college or something. I think he was like in a turban and like had blackface on.
Oh, I saw that.
It comes up like, from time to time, right? Yeah. Oftentimes I hear it from people who don't give a fuck either. Like I'll hear it from like fucking Alex Jones, who is just like, you don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They just want to own the libs.
Yeah, it's like, fuck you, Alex Jones.
Yeah.
That's my last note that I'm gonna offer is fuck you, Alex Jones, and I love you, Peter.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
Well, I'm gonna.
And I love you too, of course.
Thank you.
And it's awesome that we're doing this after 20 or 21 years.
I know, man. You're the first two of my new me too. I'm so glad that we had reconnected our dialogue and talking after.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
And you're the first one I'm doing. All I want to do is like just have a reason to go back and listen to talks that I did with my friends and edit them and put them out. So you're the first one, and once I get a little collection, I'm gonna just start loading up whatever is the second season. But I think I'm gonna commit to reading Gospel of John and getting that Tucker doc, and I think that would be a fun subject to have a second Pete episode, or not Pete.
Yeah.
Say goodbye to Peter for the second episode, and you can be a new persona. Album, and I'll be conspiracy theory guy that day. I'll be like I'll be kind of in character. We don't have to commit to it.
That's awesome. You should do it.
Yeah,
you could do it.
Like I'll do the Tucker Carlson one as like I have been convinced. Like I'll try my best to satirize someone who would buy this, right?
You might get canceled though.
I know I won't do that. Yeah,
you got to learn to do the face though. He's got that face like he's always like.
It's a very like. Yeah, what? Like he's trying to. It's like almost like this. The text is too small too. Like he's.
That's right.
Oh yeah, like.
He's like trying to do calculus in his head.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just what happens when like somebody's talking. So it's like, how hard is it to just listen to a person talk? I guess it's really hard for Tucker.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. For him. He's thinking about all the stuff he wants to say.
Exactly. I'll be a Republican.
That'll be a good segue for the next one on Patriot Purge.
Exactly. I'll let you know. I'll send you in the next few days, Peter. I'm gonna look up getting it. Maybe I can figure out a way to like somehow just get a free trial or something for like 7 days.
Oh, cool.
All right, Peter, you got 7 days to log in.
I can make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I usually I try to avoid the like the right wing rabbit hole, but for a highly polished propaganda film, I mean, this could be like America's Leni Riefenstahl moment. I mean, this, it's not every day that you get like legit right-wing propaganda from the most famous conservative commentator in the country.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's going to be slick. It's going to be pretty.
It feels important.
Yeah. And Alex Jones had a hand in it.
I'm going to think about that when I watch it. I believe it. Yeah. I mean, if not, even if he's overstating his influence, I know that, I mean, there would be no Tucker Carlson without Alex Jones.
I think he's fucking jealous because it's like Tucker is making it work, and it's really taken off, and he's kind of in the dust with his bag, with his hand open with his bag that he has to pay all these fucking bills. So he's just like, I just have to sell out all my male vitality just to keep the lights on, while Tucker's over there doing my whole fucking shtick. But he can't turn on him, because sometimes he just plays hours of Tucker's show on his show.
Really?
Yeah, he'll take a break and just, I was going to play Tucker, and he just plays fucking Tucker. I feel like it's the same audience. So
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, him. Yeah, it's like the unholy trinity, like Tucker, Alex Jones, and Steve Bannon.
Oh God, yeah.
They're like three in one.
Yeah.
It's like the trinity. Is it one or is it three? Well, it's both.
It's all
It's a mystery. It's no one really knows how it works, but it's both.
Right. They're all magically woven together in this force, the spirit of the right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The toxic right.
Yes, very toxic.
Yeah.
Patriot Purge and the Gospel of John next time. Should be an interesting combination.
Balance, right? I'm gonna do them both. If you have a version to recommend too, send it, Pete. A particular.
I think probably the translation I started with was the New International Version.
NIV, baby. Okay, I think
you know about NIV.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I have.
I like it because it's a good balance between the literal words and the like the figurative meaning.
Okay.
So Bible, you probably know this, but Bible translations are kind of measured on a scale from figurative to literal.
Okay.
King James is actually closer to the figurative side. It's not a very literal translation.
Okay.
Or another way of thinking of it is like word for word or thought for thought.
Right.
And I feel like the NIV does a good job of kind of capturing both. It
Okay.
doesn't,
Doesn't lean on any one side too much.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do it. I think I have it somewhere in here. That's why I was looking for it, but I can't pull it out. I can't do that plug. I'm going to plug the Bible. It needs some.
That's right, yeah.
All right.
Bestseller.
Well, thank you for doing this, too.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Looking forward to doing it again.
Me too, man. Me too. And I'll let you know when this is, edited and posted.
Well, thanks again. Look forward to next time.
I look forward to it as well. Sleep tight.
You too.
I hope I didn't keep you up too late.
No, it's fun.
Cool, man.
Love you, man.
Love you too, Pete.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll forget you and your advice. That's what Leon told me twice. But you couldn't say I didn't try. And then I didn't try and Leon died. Say a prayer for Keith, our friend. Say a prayer for Brother Joe, because he found him when he was hanging from the ceiling. I wonder how Brother Joe is feeling. So bring me a blanket when I'm cold. Cover me up and fill my eyes with gold. When life's retreating and I stop breathing, just